afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for welcoming. I also want to thank all the esteemed members of the organizing committee along with the ma'am for allowing me and for inviting me to present and case study the urban heat islands and relate to the urban sustainability development of this particular workshop. So basically, we will directly start with the subject of urban heat island. What exactly the urban heat island means, which are what are the impact of the urban heat island there, different parts of being, but for the different other factors of the environment, like the air, water, soil, noise, and the other parameters. So the increasing urbanization is one of the greatest anthropogenic process which is responsible for this particular talents development in the environment. They're majorly created in the areas where population is very dense. There are vehicular pollutions and vehicular there, and there are buildings which are made up of concrete major, and they're basically close to each other, and they are developing a cluster kind of a structures in the urban areas, which are responsible to create the heat island due to the trapping of heat which is produced because of their lots of anthropogenic activities. They trap the heat inside, and that the place makes the warmer than its surrounding. Therefore, the urban heat island and the urban heat island can be called as which are majorly into the urban areas and which are more majorly comparably more warmer than their surrounding because of the different anthropogenic processes. Also, the urban heat islands are more warmer than their comparatively to the rural areas because of these many factors which we are going to see in the next part of this lecture. Secondly, the buildings, roads, other infrastructures, they majorly absorbs the energy instead of re-emitting the sunset. Usually, where are the natural landscapes are there, like the water bodies are there, trees are there, forests are there. They tend to re-emit the sun's energy into the environment as compared to the buildings, roads, and infrastructure, which tend to absorb the heat energy, which itself increases the temperature of that particular entity, and therefore that creates the heat island effect. Island is nothing but a small pockets. Whenever there are buildings, whenever there are structures, whenever there is a road, suppose there is a road and the structures and the river is flowing nearby, like what the MIT Peace campus, MIT Peace University campus is there, kind of a water bodies are nearby. In that case, the water body areas are comparatively cooler than the structures which are close to it. So therefore, that makes a island kind of a thing, heat island kind of a thing, and therefore this concept is called as heat island impact. So they can be formed at the various conditions also, like during daytime, during nighttime. The heat islands can be different. Even in a small, large cities, heat island impact can be different. Not even that, even the areas like in Mumbai city, in the city area and in the suburb area, heat island temperature difference is very high because of the changes in the structures, development, the availability of a land use landscape in that area. That everything matters in and helps in deciding the heat island impact and the generation of the heat islands in the areas. A review research also states that, which is data found in United States, that the heat island effect results in daytime temperatures in urban areas about 1 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit, which is higher in temperature than the outlying areas. Also, nighttime temperatures are found that 2 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit are higher as compared to the day temperatures or in the nearby areas. Humid regions which are there, they also tend to have the lesser heat island impact. So this is nothing but the micro scale temperature and the differences between the urban and the rural areas. If you see here, the rural areas are having very lower temperature. As you're going ahead to the commercial areas, the temperature are going around like 33 degrees Celsius. And after that, when you pass and changes and come to the urban residential area, Again, probably because of this greenery, because of these lower height structures and the scattered structures, the temperature is dropping down to 31 degrees Celsius. And when you go to suburban residential area, temperature is further going down to 30 degrees Celsius. So like this, it starts from rural area 30 degrees Celsius, it go up to 33 degrees Celsius to the commercial areas in the nearby cities or nearby areas, like factories are there, data centers are there. Data centers are one of the most heat extensive building structures which are considered nowadays. They not only use lots of energy, they also release lots of energy because of their cooling powers. So data centers require a lot of cooling of their machines and the processors and everything, and therefore they are considered as the largest heat island creators in the urban areas. So like that structure is there, that structure itself creates a smaller part of like heat island impact and its surrounding as well as. So accordingly, the areas which are rural had the lower temperature because of the overall development of that particular area as compared to the commercial area, as compared to the urban residential area, and therefore some urban area residential area you can have the lowest temperature like 30 degrees Celsius, up to 30 degrees Celsius. Now we'll see how exactly the heat islands are formed. So whenever there are structures, there is less ground storage of area, transpiration will be more. And in case of the landscape, land use, forest areas, water areas, the ground greater ground storage of rainfall can be available. Plants also help in transpiration, and therefore the less heat is absorbed itself inside that particular area, and therefore those areas are comparatively cooler as compared to the areas which are highly residential or highly commercial. So now we are going to the urban heat island, how exactly that area defines. Urban heat islands are nothing but the temperature difference in both urban and the rural areas. If you see here in the urban area, in the rural areas, because of this landscape, because of the roads, pavements, and the lower height buildings, probably because of the color of the building, the temperatures are far more less than if you compare the areas which are the in the urban areas. In urban areas, the buildings are usually close to each other. The roads are made up of the concrete, and the structures are very close. AC air conditions are there. Then there are the dark surface usually are there in the urban areas, and therefore instead also there are lack of greeneries also in the urban areas, and because of that the urban areas tend to create a larger amount of heat islands as compared to the areas which are having the rural areas or the suburban areas. So we'll see one by one what are the causes of the urban heat island development. First of all, and very important, is the reduced natural landscape in the urban areas. Even after the urban development, people are tend to reduce the natural landscape in the urban areas and tend to make it into more decorative or more aesthetic of landscape development in the areas, which itself reduce the absorption of a heat from the atmosphere. But however, the maintenance of those landscape areas over the longer period of time is definitely not possible, and ultimately it creates a impact of heat, and therefore the heat islands develop in the urban areas because trees, vegetation, water bodies which are already naturally there, they help the air to cool by providing the shade. Then transpiration of water from the plant leaves, evapotranspiration is also happened, and that's why overall the surfaces are comparatively humid and comparatively cooler than the hard and dry surfaces in the urban areas. Then urban material properties, conventional human-made materials which are there like concretes are there, few kinds of building materials are there which are usually considered to reflect the solar energy uh, into a larger amount. So in that case, also the urban heat island impact can be reduced. However, most of the traditional materials that we use for the construction are tend to absorb more of heat energy than to emit of sun's heat energy inside in the environment. and therefore that building itself creates an heat island effect. Then urban geometry is also important. Considering the development of the urban cities, the geometry of a buildings, the distance between the two buildings, the orientations of a buildings, and the heat flow decides, because of there is a wind is also creating a major impact on creating the heat island effect. There should be minimum like 6 to 8 meter distance should be there between the two buildings. That is the law says. However, there are majority of the buildings in urban areas. If you can find, the wind flow is always influenced because of the orientation of a building, depending on the aesthetic appearance of a building that the developer decides of that. So because of that, the urban geometry also impact a lot on creating the heat island impact on the neighboring area or the neighboring buildings. Because large thermal masses of each and every building try to absorb the heat inside them, and accordingly they make and they add to the heat island effect. That also impact because the congested construction in the urban areas that block the natural wind flow in that particular area, which actually brings the cooling impact. So that natural wind flow is blocked because of this particular thing, and therefore the heat island is generated because of the urban geometry. The next is heat generated from the human activities. Like whatever the vehicles we use to travel, air conditioning units in the areas, the buildings are there, industrial facilities which emits the heat into the environment, or the gaseous pollutions are there. These are all the sources of human generated, or they are also called as anthropogenic sources. And that waste heat can be contributed to the heat island impact. Like weather and geography. Calm and clear weather conditions results in more severe heat island by maximizing the amount of solar energy reaching the urban surfaces. Therefore, usually, if weather is calm and very clear, in that case, the heat island impact is maximized. Just give me a second. Geography also plays an important role in creating the heat island impact. Like if calm and clear weather is there, in that case, heat island impact is maximized as compared to if the strong winds and cloud cover is there, in that case, heat island impact is suppressed. That's because if calm and clear weather is there and there is no wind, in that case, heat is directly absorbed by that particular material or the heat or whatever the geometry or whatever the landscapes that we are talking about. But if along conversely, if the winds are very strong, cloud cover is suppressed, humidity is more in the environment, in that case, the heat island impact can be definitely reduced or can be less as compared to the calm and clear weather. Now, there are further causes of heat islands like urban deserts. Urban deserts is nothing but basically a virtual desert that we are developing in the urban areas. This lacks lots of vegetation, which actually help to evapotranspirate the water and help to cool the environment. Because of lack of evaporation, the heat islands is generated. Then urban canyons. Urban canyons are nothing but a city buildings which radiate energy in their walls. That blocks the wind flow inside the building, within the two buildings, and that's why that canyon impact effect can be seen, and that creates the heat island in the atmosphere. Humidity impact. Humidity is nothing but there is difference in the amount of water that cities and countrysides can retain in the atmosphere. So that's why usually if the atmosphere humidity is more, heat island impact is less. And if atmosphere humidity is less, heat island impact will be more. This is inversely proportional. Now, urban haze is nothing but there are various air pollutants which are there in the urban areas, like because of vegetation, greenhouse there are there. Then that helps and it prevents the outgoing of the thermal radiation from escaping into the urban areas. And as we discussed that the anthropogenic heat is nothing but the burning of fossil fuels also contributes towards the increased urban temperatures. Factors contributing to the urban heat island, as we discussed just now, CO2 emission because of the lots of humans are gathering in the cities. Then air condition, which are majorly used in the cities, in every houses, probably in every new offices, houses, or areas, or shops and everything. So that air conditioner release the heat in the atmosphere. Destruction of a trees in the urban area is that less cooling efficiency is there. Heat trapped in the atmosphere because of the urban canopy. There is less convection because wind is blocked by the urban development. Also, the air pollutants which are there in the atmosphere and the low albedo materials. Heat absorption is usually impacted by the paint material that we are using. So these are the summarize of the factors which contribute to the urban heat island impact. Now, in simple words, if you want to understand what exactly the urban heat island is, the dark surfaces usually absorb more heat, and the brighter surfaces usually reflect more heat. Like suppose we mostly in summer season prefer to wear a white t-shirt just because the black t-shirt absorbs more heat and it becomes a hot material as compared to if you are using white shirts or a brighter shirt that tends to reflect more material into the more heat into the atmosphere. So this is nothing but a simple language heat island impact. Then we are seeing the waste heat. Waste heat nothing but a heat which is released by lots of equipments. There are major equipments like we are using in the household without even understanding that these equipments usually release the heat into the atmosphere. The major impact of this is occur because of this air conditioner, cooling towers. Then we have the AC, fridge in our houses. Even the TVs are these emits the energy in the atmosphere, and that's why that waste heat responsible to have more heat island impact in the city areas. Along with these, there are various vehicle pollutions are also there. A big smaller vehicle, suppose in case of like in water also the ships are standing, vessels are standing for the loading unloading. These also release a large amount of heat energy inside the temperature inside the environment. Lack of evapotranspiration. Now we will see this particular in depth as we had already discussed each and everything. So whenever the evapotranspiration happen by the trees or the leaves of the trees, then in that case the air surrounding them becomes cool. Along with that, whatever the shade that is created by the tree cover or the canopy area, that's also help to reduce the environment on the roads or on the pavement or on the areas where the trees are planted. So whenever we see that the heat is very less trapped inside the area. Just a second. Places like soil and green areas which are replaced with a dry, hard and impermeable surfaces such as concrete, asphalt, this cooling process is significantly reduced. The built surfaces do not allow water to penetrate, evaporate and instead absorb the stored heat. As a result, less heat is used for the evapotranspiration and more heat is remained trapped in the surfaces and in the surrounding air, leading to the higher temperatures. So objectives, we will see that the major topic of today's discussion is we are seeing or we are actually practically doing one satellite imagery and we are generating heat map and we are learning basically how the heat maps are generated using the ArcGIS. So the understanding of basic why we are doing the urban heat islands and why we are studying them, what will be the impacts of them that we are studying, that we are seeing, and along with that we are also having one practical session where we are actually trying to identify and make the heat island map for the areas which are near to the MIT Peace University. So this is basically done to evaluate the intensity and spatial patterns of the urban heat island effect within the study area. Then we can also analyze the influence of urban infrastructure, land use and vegetation on the temperature variations. To utilize remote sensing data combined with the ground measurements for the comprehensive assessment to identify temporal trends and the potential future scenarios of urban heat island undergoing the urban growth, and to provide the actionable insights for urban planners and policymakers to mitigate the heat related impact. So basically, in the urban areas where the heat island is very impact is very high, in that case we can identify the heat pockets in the city. We can try to mitigate the situation by planting more and more trees in the areas, or probably we will see the also some of the mitigation measures. So we can apply those mitigation measures by making a policy as such to reduce the heat island impact in that particular area. So basically, doing anything like on the government scale or on the even the society scale, first we need to identify which are the areas which are impacted by the heat island. Accordingly, we will decide the plan of action to mitigate the same. So impacts of urban heat islands. Firstly, it's very important is economic implications, because the heat island not only increases the heat and temperature of the surrounding area, this also impact the human, animal, or the living animals or living things near to the particular heat island, because it also decrease the worker productivity, rises in the volatility of prices of a food grain, reduce tourism potential. These are the economic implication of the heat island. Strain on the energy resources because of the increased heat in the surrounding. Though whatever is the reason, we will have to use more and more air conditioning, more and more the refrigeration, which will also tend to increase the higher amount of greenhouse gases in the surrounding area, and also that creates a strain on the electrical grids. Studies have also shown that urban heat islands can increase the electricity consumption for cooling in urban areas by up to 20%. So it's a very high electricity consumption, like more than 20% if you compare the electricity required in the same area for the non-urban areas. Then it also has some adverse health impacts also. Health related illness like heat exhaustion, heat strokes are also there, and that's because of the increased heat island which majorly identified and seen in the summer season like we are facing right now. So altered microclimates and ecosystem disruption. So microclimate alters is nothing but there may be changes in the rainfall distribution pattern, rainfall intensity pattern, atmospheric stability may not be there. So that's me, they impact the urban hydrology, urban vegetation, and which also reduce to evapotranspiration rate, increase the stormwater runoff because there is no soil or no trees to help that stormwater runoff to catch and reduce the flow of the runoff. Then it also decreases the water quality in the urban streams and river, because whatever the water flows through the roads and all the pavements and the infrastructure, in that case the quality of the water will be definitely degraded, which is reaching to the urban streams and rivers. Then reduced air quality also. This is very important phenomenon, that the thermal inversion layers which are there, which traps the pollutants which are close to the ground, and therefore that increase the air quality and that increase the air pollution in that particular area, and reducing the impact of better air quality in the area. Most commonly PM10, PM2.5 where their suspended particles are also there. They tend to absorb more amount of heat if they are more in the concentration in the surrounding area, and which also form a heat island effect on the roads and the roads and the areas surrounding the roads. Now, we have already seen that whatever the impacts of the heat island can be there, what are the types of heat island, why they occur. So there has to be some actions that we can take up, and we can reduce the heat island impact in the area where the heat island is very high, tends to be a very high concentration. So there are few mitigation strategies which we can apply to reduce the impact of the heat island in the surrounding areas. So these are basically definitely the first and most important is trees and vegetation, which is always and already there on the various urban developed areas, which we used to cut it, and when we are trying to develop the structures surrounding them or within on them, but we definitely forget to replant those vegetation to reduce the impact of not only heat island but the major other factors also. Then there are the concepts like green roofs are there. So nowadays, many people are using these green roofs. Even you can get the credits if you are using the concepts like green roof and cool roofs and the cool payments. We will see the difference between these three: green roof, cool roof, and the cool payments. Then we can also try to reduce the waste heat which is generated by the different kinds of equipments like we have already discussed ACs and refrigerators, or the vehicles are also there. And the last one is urban design. Whenever the areas which are already not well designed or well developed, like town planning can definitely think of designing the urban areas based on the heat island impact. If the areas are clustered and the lower and open parking spaces are at the different location, definitely the clustered developed areas will generate the heat island. Instead of that, we can have the different clusters of the construction and the landscape within them. So cumulatively, they will try and reduce the generation of heat island impact. So we are seeing the first strategy, mitigation strategy, which is trees and vegetation. Definitely, the land cover, which is more or more towards the vegetation and the trees, will definitely reap the multiple benefits. As I discussed, that this is not only for the heat island impact, but this is also help to reduce the speed of a runoff, stormwater runoff from the land. It also helped to reduce the air pollution. It also helped to reduce the environment more cooler as compared to the surrounding area. Strategically planting trees is also important. This also helps to reduce the energy saving and the reduce GHG emissions. Now, energy saving is nothing but when the surrounding air is quite cooler, we can also reduce the energy which is required to cool the environment inside our homes as compared to if the trees are not there, we will have to use the more energy to cool our homes. This also helps to reduce the GHG emission. GHG emission is nothing but a greenhouse gas emission. So majorly greenhouse gas emissions happen because of the refrigerator and air conditions. So when we reduce the use of these equipments to cool the environment or cool the surrounding, this will ultimately reduce the GHG emissions as well. So buildings, parking lots, streets, and more. So we can plant the tree not only in buildings, in the parking lots also. In the parking lots, as in the parking lots which are at the podium level, which are at the basement level, where the open parking lots are there. So where the air conditioning, where the heat impact will be more, we can try and plant more and more trees near to that particular area. Streets is very important that we have to plant the trees on the dividers as well as the areas which are uh, along the roads. We can plant the trees along the streets. We can plant the trees to reduce the heat emissions. Second is green roofs. Green roofs, as we just discussed, this is not just the roof. This can be your balconies. This can be your walls. This can be your top of the buildings. Nothing but the roofs. So this roofs are not only provide shade also, but it also helps to cool the environment by the evapotranspiration process. It also reduce the heat gain in the summer areas, and it also help to reduce your energy consumption inside the building. Overall energy saving is depend upon the area of the cool roof or green roof that you are using in your particular buildings. Applicability is mostly it is used for the residential, commercial, industrial purpose. All the other not only the residential, commercial, industrial buildings can be easily maintained by these green roofs. Correct? different types of green roofs also. One is called as extensive green roof, other is called as intensive green roof. Extensive green roof is nothing but where the thin soil layer is there, which is approximately a 2 inches soil layer. So where you can have a very small shrubs, a kind of a grass structure or runners or the climbers you can plant there, wherein you can get the impact of green roof, but the maintenance of those plants is very less. So like money plants are there, then there are different types of runners are there which require very less maintenance and we can usually plant to the buildings. Secondly, the intensive roof is nothing but a thicker soil like which support little bit of big trees or the plants or the areas which are easily accessible because they require a lots of maintenance in that particular intensive green roofs. Next is cool roofs. So there are difference between the green roofs and the cool roofs. Cool roofs is nothing but we use the highly reflective material and the highly reflective and emissive material, meaning that they reflect more and more sunlight and release absorb it efficiently. So whenever the warm roof is there, warm roof reflect 20% if suppose, then the cool roof if we are installing, then it definitely reflects the 80% of its energy inside the in the environment. So there are again two types of cool roof. Benefits are like reduce surface temperature of the roofs, lower the indoor cooling demand, and improves overall energy efficiency. So cool roofs can be two types. One is low sloped roof, that is coating or single ply membranes are there. Then second is steep slope roof material, which is asphalt shining and metal roofings are there, tiles are there, and shakes are there. So, as the civil engineering student, you already know that there are different kinds of roofs are there. Here, some roof types are also given. Like single slope roof plan is given and perspective is given where the roof is only a single slope. Then the gables roof is there. Gable roof perspective is both the side you have the slopey roof. Heap slope is also there where you have 3 or 4 sides of slopes in on your roof and 6 slope roof is also there. So in the perspective we can see the 6 slope roof. So there are different types of roof. Now we will see that what are the slope roof and steep slope roof. Whenever the angle of the slope is on the roof is very less, that is called as low slope roof. And whenever the angle is very steep, this is called as steep slope roof. So there are two types of roofs are also there. Few of the other factors that also we can use the roofs is not only the roof, we can also paint the walls of a building using this particular paints, high emissivity paint or high emissivity material like glasses are there, like so for example woods are there. So we can coat that particular walls and roof using these materials to reduce the absorption of a heat from the environment and reduce the heat island impact. Now we will see the difference between the cool roof and the green roof. As we have seen both the roof, firstly cool roofs are very quick. It's very cost effective solution. You just have to paint your roofs with the colors which are specific to the heat island impact. We can also use the China mosaic tiles to cover your roofs, and it's very quick. It's cost effective also, and it does not require a longer time maintenance for that particular roofing material to work. In case of green roof, long-term and sustainable cooling is definitely benefited. However, green roofs maintenance is very high because you have to maintain all those plants, you have to water them, you have to see for some kinds of like pets or the or some kind of material if suppose they are damaging the things. So you will have to every day and day out we have to maintain the green roofs to have those long-term benefit of those roofs. So working principle of cool roof is reflect light, sunlight and emit heat. And the working principle of green roof is again provide shade, cool through evapotranspiration. Again, the aesthetic factor is also there. In cool roof, the aesthetic factor is less as compared to the green roof. Temperature reduction is in cool roof, surface stays 28 to 33 degree cooler, and in green roof, it reduces the ambient and the surface temperature. Energy impact is nothing but cool roof lowers cooling demand, And green roof reduce cooling and provides also a insulation to the building. Maintenance of cool roof is very low. However, the green roof is moderate to high depending upon which kind of roof you are planning to have, like intensive or extensive. Accordingly, the maintenance can be moderate to high, but definitely the maintenance of green roof is more than as compared to the cool roofs. Installation of cool roof is very easy and it's also cost effective. It's not labor intensive. In case of green roof, you have to provide the structural support for your soil, your plants, planning. Then it's also a labor intensive not only during the installation but throughout the process of maintaining those green roof. You have to use the labors. Best use is for gold roof is commercial and industrial because maintenance is very less. It's easy to install and it's cost effective also. So better impact is there in the commercial industrial building. However, in residential building, commercial building and urban sustainability, where the heat and impact is more, we will definitely have to use and install the green roofs for the better impact of the heat island reduction. So these are the cool roof versus the green roof. So this is the same building is analyzed by using the cool roof. That is, we have used just the metal sheets which are painted with the high emissivity or reflectivity bed. And here the same building is used with the green cover. This is not the extensive. This is the intensive roofing material that we have used. As a part of simulation, if you can see here, the prior light to green roof system is 56 degrees Celsius. However, in case of green roof, we have the 26 degrees Celsius. So we have a much lower heat is absorbed in case of the green roof. However, the maintenance as we discussed is more as compared to the cool roof. The other mitigation strategy is nothing but the cool pavements. Cool pavements are nothing but the pavements which are designed to reflect more sunlight and absorb less heat by the materials which are used to develop the pavements. So higher solar reflectance, the albedo is very high for the material which are using to develop the pavements. Increased permeability, and that allows water to infiltrate inside the pavement and help to cool the overall environment. Some materials are also enable evaporative cooling. Benefits is lower pavement surface temperature. It also reduces surrounding air temperature. It improves the penetration comfort and it decreases the urban heat island intensity. Now the type of cool pavements are like reflective coatings, as we discussed in the cool roof that the coatings is only there. Secondly, light color concrete can be used instead of the dark color concrete material so that the reflectivity can be achieved more. Permeable pavements like porous materials are there. Then the previous concrete materials are there, which is having a very permeable structures and can water can pass through them inside them and the cooling impact can be generated. And the interlocking pavers, which we normally nowadays we are using this interlocking pavers everywhere. So interlocking pavers helps to absorb the water more because of their interlocking patterns. The help water absorb inside the pavers help to cool the surrounding environment as well as help to reduce the heat island impact. Then next is waste heat reduction. We have to identify the which equipments which are actually generating more amount of heat in the particular heat island. There can be a areas like if suppose hospital is there, there may be a HVAC system which is used in more amount than the suppose for example vehicles. So we will have to identify exactly which activity is generating heat waste, and then we can try and implement the reduction of the heat waste in that particular area to reduce the impact of heat island in the area. So use of the energy efficient building and appliances is very important, even if it is residential, it's commercial or any other factor. Adoption of a public transport and electric vehicles is important because public transport will reduce the heat generation. Improving HVAC system efficiency, then utilizing waste heat recovery system, promoting renewable energy resources is important to reduce the waste heat. So benefits are reduces overall urban temperature, lower energy consumption and improves air quality and enhances the thermal comfort in the cities. The last is urban design. Urban design is nothing but we will, as we discussed, that we will before developing anything in the areas which are now open and we want to develop in for future. So we will have to identify the pockets of development, pockets of the water, pockets of the land use, landscape, and accordingly we will have to plan and develop the cities which are upcoming. So along with that, materials which are also used for the building development can be carefully selected. Like for example, in IGBC certification, Indian Green Building Council certificates are there in nowadays that the developer usually awarded for the measures they have taken to reduce the impact on the building on the environment. So accordingly, they also select and suggest the material that they can be used, and the impact of environment of those buildings can be reduced. So majorly in case of urban design, we will have to see that if we can increase the green space, not only on the parks and the forest and the other areas, like we can also increase the green space on the terraces, on the balconies, like we have seen in the green roof. We can increase the green areas to reduce the impact. Optimize building layout also. So accordingly, we can decide the spacing between the buildings, orientation of a building, so that the airflow will be more. Wind can be easily passed through the buildings, and which will help to cool the environment. Urban ventilation corridors. It's nothing but ventilation corridors, like deciding the height of a building, deciding the orientation of a building, so that that corridors will be available for the wind to ventilate the areas. Then shaded streets and the public spaces, nothing but a use of trees, or you can also use the canopies which are covered with the metal sheets of the high emissivity paints. So accordingly, we can see the structures, we can try to shed them, and then can impact reduction of the heat element. Mixed land use planning is also there. So mixed land use planning is nothing but we have to see that the public transport is available in the areas where large amount of people are travel from one place to another place, so that we can reduce the use of number of vehicles, and that way we can also reduce the air pollution and also the heat element impact. Benefits is the lower surface and air temperature. It improves the outdoor thermal comfort also. It enhances the air circulation and supports sustainable and livable urban environments. So use of GIS and RS. Now we are seeing how we are using the GIS and the remote sensing structures or remote sensing images to reduce the urban heat island impact. So I'm taking you to the software first. We will just have one small kind of a assessment doing here. So this is what the area that I have selected. Okay. So this is nothing but the MIT Peace University area. A small area also I have selected to identify the impact of the urban heat island, and along with that, this bigger area is also selected because there is one river also, a small pond kind of a structure also. So we can easily identify what are the impacts of heat island in this particular area by using the remote sensing satellite images, or we will generate the heat maps in this particular areas. So we are using the ArcMap. Before that, I'll just explain you one thing. Okay, so we are using ArcMap. Till that ArcMap open, I want to explain you few things, like we are using here a satellite image. So there are lots of satellite image which are now available online to download freely. They are having the different layers also. You can also see the land use, land cover, temperatures, then emissivity, albedo. There are lots of information available on the satellite, but we you have to know that exactly which satellite image is to be used for which particular kind of analysis. So whenever we are discussing about this heat generation or the surface temperatures, we are using Landsat 8 satellite image. Specifically, that's the thermal infrared band we are using, which is actually captures the surface temperatures. So how we are using it? So basically, we are using PIRS data, thermal infrared data we are using, because this is generated by the thermal infrared sensors data. And in that also, when you download any Landsat image, you will get 10 different bands. I'll show you how the bands look like when you download. Uh, okay, I'm not downloading. It's saying Landsat 08. So you have to see that you have downloaded the 08 number satellite image, which is nothing but a thermal infrared band 10 of the satellite image. Then you can have the spectral radiance, brightness, temperature is there in that particular area. Also, you can check the surface emittivity is also there. Then you also have the NDVI. NDVI is nothing but the vegetation proportion of that particular area in that satellite image we can identify, and accordingly, ultimately, we can see how the land surface temperature in that particular area are varying. So I'm taking you to a little technical now after the theoretical things are over. That we are using a Landsat 8 image for the areas, and Landsat temperatures tells us how hot actual the ground surface is. This is very important. We are identifying the ground surface temperature using the satellite images. Now, as my topic suggests, we are discussing one macro environment and one micro environment as well. Both the things are done in different softwares. You can do it in one software also, but just for your understanding that there can be a different software used for this purpose, we are discussing two softwares. So Landsat level 2, why we are using only level 2 satellite imagery is because it already includes the atmospheric correction. So atmospheric is correction is nothing but the cloud cover is not there. All the atmospheric factors are already corrected. Thermal inversion layers are already corrected in that particular satellite image. Then it also provides surface temperature for Landsat 8 and 9. So the sensors 8 and 9 of Landsat provides you a actual ground surface temperature to identify using the different processors. It includes the cloud mask for the accurate filtering as well. It is analysis ready and it is available from 2013 to 2024. So you can just download the satellite image like from 2013, then even after 5 years, 5 years, 5 years, and you can see and identify the heat island impact over the period of time on that particular area, whether it is there or whether it is not there, or in which areas the heat island is formed, why, what are the reasons of that particular formation of a heat island, how we can reduce that particular heat island, we can suggest the mitigation measures. So accordingly you can have a one small project kind of a thing. However, Landsat level 1 satellite image, it only gives you brightness and temperature, which is actually not corrected for the atmosphere, and therefore for the scientific study, we always choose this level 2 Landsat satellite image. Now, coming to this, there are few things that we have to do. Firstly, band 10, you have to select the thermal infrared sensor and then the surface temperature. But however, the surface temperature which are there in this satellite image is usually in Kelvin or Celsius. But the surface temperatures are usually scaled in Kelvin. So we have to first convert them, this temperature of scale, they are not scale obviously. So we have to scale them to a Kelvin first using the formula. And then Kelvin temperature can be changed into the Celsius, which will get you the actual degree Celsius temperature of that particular area. Now let's practice and see how heat maps are prepared using the satellite image. Our ArcGIS is also open. So we are just opening the satellite image that we have just discussed. So I'm adding, I just now we discussed that the Landsat imagery. Now see, if you can see here, the satellite imagery itself is saying that this is Landsat 08 level 2, okay, and here you can see BT10. So we are using band 10 of satellite imagery. For our understanding and for the write-up, we will just change the name to band thermal temperatures to 10, okay. Now, as we have just see here, we have to first convert this particular data into the Kelvin data. So we will have to just copy this formula from here, and now you can just go here and type raster calculator and just search it here. You will get the raster calculator. It's a special analysis tool. Okay, now here you can see already whatever the raster is there in the environment is already they have identified. We took the raster image which we have to correct it for the Kelvin, and we have to paste the formula that we have just copied from here.